Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this Wednesday night Bible study here at Faith Baptist Church's Facebook Live. I'm so glad to have everybody with us this evening. Hello to Sylvia and to Sylvia. Okay, good to have both of you here today, this evening. Tonight we are in 1 Samuel chapter 14. We are continuing on in our books of history. This is going to be part 2 of a series of lessons I have called The Pitfalls of a Prideful King. And I think it'll be an interesting study, to say the least. Hopefully you are blessed by it. It's something you enjoy. I do have a couple of updates for you, but if you guys would like the stream, completely free, a small way to support this ministry, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm looking over here an awful lot because that's where your comment section is. So if you see me do this a lot, it's because I'm checking for you guys to talk. So I have an update real quick I want to talk about with the TikTok videos. For those of you who don't know, we've been uploading little short minute and a half videos over on TikTok, just about a single Bible verse, trying to be encouraging, uplifting, a good way to start the day. So we had really early on in this year gotten to the point where we were really growing a lot. One of our videos has like 1,800 views, which is a lot for us. I know that's not a lot for some people, but it's a lot for us. And then it was like 900 for a whole week, which was a really big deal for me. And it was very special and amazing. And then the next week it dropped to 22 views, 20 views, like really, really low, which was suspicious to me, but I don't want to, be the boy who cried wolf. So I didn't it's probably something I did wrong, or, I don't really understand this. So I took a break from doing them for a long time. And then I started doing them again. I was getting a couple hundred views, and it was really special to me. And then this past week, those of you who have been looking for those videos on TikTok, the reason they're not there is because I'm about 90% sure that TikTok has started to ban all of our Bible-based videos. So I did some experimenting with it yesterday. I even tried to reach out to TikTok. I never heard anything back. So all the videos for this week have been like content under review, which is what every video that goes on TikTok does, except usually after a few minutes it goes away. These never did. They're still under review. And every time I upload a video about the Bible, it stays under review and it hides it where nobody else but me, the account holder, can see it. So I uploaded a video that had nothing to do with the Bible just to see if it would go live, and it almost immediately did. So what I've started doing instead, so they will not allow me to upload those on TikTok anymore. So what I've started doing instead is I'm now uploading those same videos to YouTube as shorts. So if you go to the church's YouTube channel, which is where this live stream is right now, and you check out the shorts section of the YouTube page, you will find 2 verse videos on here. So you can still have those. They'll still be available. They'll be better quality next week. I didn't realize my camera was a little fuzzy. I fixed it. But it will be better quality next week. But we do have those. They're going to be up for you guys to watch still. They're just going to be here instead of TikTok because we have been what's called shadow banned. There's no reason why. They don't reach out to you when they do that. They just decided they don't like what content you're putting out, and they don't like the content that we're putting out about the Bible. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So yeah, we're still going to have them. We will not be deterred. We will continue to go forward for the Lord. And if you want to watch them, that's where they'll be. Now, I wanted to let y'all know about that pretty quick, but we do have a lot to pray for this evening. Okay, so starting at 5:30 this morning, Amanda, who had gotten a text the night before, but we were already asleep by that point, and then we had woke up, saw it, and immediately put it on the church's group me. That asked us to pray for Emmy, who is a little girl in the ICU. She can't feel her legs and has minimal feeling in her arms, and they said they will probably be in the hospital for a while. She's in kindergarten, and it's a friend of my cousin, Tiffany Brooks, who will swing at me if she finds out I called her that. We do have an update on Emmy, if I can find it. Yeah. So it says this was almost 12 hours later. After the second MRI results, they highly suspected it's, I'm not going to say most of this right, transverse myelitis. Minutitis. Okay. I see. I knew I wasn't going to say it right. They will begin additional treatment with a steroid, antibiotic, and an anti-inflammatory. Spinal cord areas are inflamed, causing nerve damage. She got the ventilator pulled a little while ago and is breathing well, so that's some good news. Has a plastic covering on her chest to compress fluid up and help her cough. We'll get that every 3 hours. Brave little girl. Hopefully, will be talking to us soon. We'll have PT/OT sessions daily. I don't know what that is. Physical therapy. I see. Sessions daily. And the OT is the breathing. Okay. Knee moved on reflex hammer today, but still no movement in lowers. Okay, so you guys continue to pray for Emmy. Very, very much needs prayers there. Then let me go back up. Amanda asked us to pray for Jacob and Lizzie as they had their first day of school. First day of school went very well. We appreciate your prayers. And not just for our kids, but for all the kids starting school. I think probably all districts have started by now. If not, they're waiting for September, I'm sure. But continue to be in prayer for that. And we appreciate your prayers. We mentioned on Sunday about Billy McLeod, who was quite the thing that she went through. Thank you, Amanda, for the like. I appreciate that. And for Sylvia earlier. I appreciate your like as well. So she had been taken to the hospital. We weren't really sure why. We got an update on her. She is going into a rehab facility. She is doing better. She didn't have sepsis like we thought she might have, but it was a UTI. She was put on a strong dose of antibiotics, and she started eating better and feeling a lot better. And so it says, please pray. Please continue to pray for her. So that's an update on her, heading in a positive direction for her. We appreciate your prayers, but keep praying for Miss Billy McLeod. An update on Ryan's dad. This is RD. He got his results, and he has blockage and a leaky valve in his heart. They are planning surgery sometime in September. So pray for Ryan's dad, RD. I'm saying that right?
Yes, you are.
I have 3 people that I know who have letter names, and I constantly get the letters mixed up. But that is RD. Be in prayer for him. This is, for those of you who know Ryan, a member of our church. This is her father. Pray for him that they can get this figured out, that his body will grow stronger and remain strong. So they can figure all this out and he can get back to full health. That is all the updates that I have. So if you guys have anything, feel free to leave a comment. I will do my best to read it, and then I will read it out loud for everybody as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump over to our Bible study camera. Okay, now you should be able to see that pretty well. If you can't see it, I don't know what to do for you. This is as good a quality as I think it can be, so you should be able to read that pretty good. If not, I have another idea for you. Do this the old-fashioned way. But we are in 1 Samuel 14, like I said. We're talking about King Saul still. And in chapter 14, it says in verse 1, see if I can read this for you guys. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the younger man that bare his armor, come and let us go over to the Philistine garrison that is on the other side. That's on the other side. But he told not his father. His father, by the way, being the king. In verse 2, Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron. And the people that were with him were about 600 men. And Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. So that person was also with him, is what it's saying. And the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. So this is where we've set the scene, and verse 4 is where it starts to really dig into the story. There's a war going on. Jonathan is Saul's son. Jonathan has gone with his armor bearer into enemy territory, but has not told anybody about it. So in verse 4, it says, "And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on the one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other was Seneh. The forefront of the one was situated northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah." So if you have a map, this makes a lot more sense. So basically these two giant rocks were sort of separating Israel from the Philistines, and these two encampments. Verse 6 says, "Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, Come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. And his armor-bearer said unto him, Do all that is in thine heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee, according to thy heart." So we have, firstly this evening, is the irrelevance of numbers. Jonathan just here talking about how the numbers didn't matter. That God was so powerful and strong, he could overcome any particular kind of number. So we see this overcoming spirit in the very beginning when they are caught literally between a rock and a hard place. Two very difficult rocks to climb or to cross over, and it did not deter them. So the name Bozez, which was one of the names that we read, it's one of the names of the rocks, it means smooth. And the name Seneh means jagged. So one smooth, one jagged, but they're both very difficult rocks to literally overcome. This is picturesque for us. This paints a visual for us, for things that we deal with in our own life, because whether you find yourself down a slippery slope or facing a rough time, we remember that God has called us to conquer the challenges in our life rather than run from them. I wish I could tell you that if you do everything right, you eat all your vegetables, you say, you toss the salt over your shoulder and do all the things right, then bad things won't happen. But that's not the case. Unfortunately, bad days still happen. You have days where there goes the flat tire. You have days where, all the technology goes out. You have days where, something's going on at work. You have days where this stuff happens. And the thing isn't to get frustrated that they happen at all, but that when we have problems, to look for God's strength and help to conquer these challenges. We shouldn't shrink from the challenge. We shouldn't be frustrated and throw up our hands in defeat when a challenge presents itself. We should look for the opportunity for God to help us and give us the strength to overcome these challenges. Romans 8:35 says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? As it is written, For thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us." Paul writing to the Romans there about the love of Christ and how it overcomes everything. In terrible persecutions, awful distresses, famine, even violence of the sword, which is what they had in their day. God is able to overcome any problem that comes your way. It doesn't always turn out the way that you'd like for it to, but God still helps you to overcome these things. Just don't get so caught up in things happening the way you want them to. Look for God's victory in these things, because he will give you victory. One of the rocks, it says, was toward Michmash, where the Philistines were encamped, and the other was toward Gibeah. So this is what I was talking about earlier. The one rock represents the opposition of the Philistines, which is probably the jagged rock that would make for an exhausting and dangerous opponent, right? The smooth rock represents King Saul. Or, I'm sorry, the smooth rock represented King Saul that dwelt in Gibeah. Since the word for smooth stone is bozez, may also be interpreted muddy or slippery, and pictures the king's emotional and spiritual condition, which kept him from being able to do anything against the Philistines. So in other words, King Saul was a little bit stuck in the mud, because he was resisting the things that God was trying to put into him. The thing about it is that God wanted very much to have Saul stay in his lane. And what we saw last week was he began to be a little bit prideful, a little bit puffed up, and say, well, Samuel, if you were here to do your job, I wouldn't have had to have done it for you. Instead of admitting, yes, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have made that sacrifice. So we come to this place and we see Saul starting to be filled with things he shouldn't be filled with, instead of the things that God wanted for him. He's getting a little stuck in the mud here, and it's making it hard for God to use him, and it's making it hard for God to fill him with his strength. If you're filled with pride, there's no room for God's strength. That's an important thing to remember. It's kind of like a car. If you ever had a car stuck in the mud, it is one of the most difficult things to deal with. It will take an act of Congress to get that car out of the mud. It is so hard once it gets stuck. And you will get a little dirty in the process. But much like a car kind of spins its wheels in the muck and the mud, it's kind of picturing King Saul here. He's a little bit stuck in the muck and the mud, and he can't get out. It's easy to get in this place where you're sort of stuck in the mud in your faith. Right? Where you're just kind of going through the motions. It has no emotions for you. It has no feeling. You're just kind of there because it's what you do. You don't, really get emotional about these things anymore. It's easy to get in that place. But where we can succeed, where King Saul failed, is that we can acknowledge when we're in those places, and we can fix it. It's not too late for you this evening. You can acknowledge the fact that your faith has gone a little stale, and you can repair that. So they come across these two rocks, and they're problems for overcoming from one or the other. However, Jonathan overcame both rocks. And as they're coming up on the camp, they realize there's a lot more of those boys than there are of us, because there's only two of them. And Jonathan understood that God is not limited by numbers. Either big numbers or small numbers, God is not limited by numbers. We're reminded of Gideon's 300. Right? He started off with thousands. It was still going to be a challenge, but he was prepared to face it. A little bit over. They had more numbers than Gideon did by a little bit. By the time they got there, it was a lot. And by the time they got there, God still gave them the victory. And so Jonathan here, realizing, probably from this story of Gideon, who had already had this lesson and was written down and chronicled for future generations, Jonathan may very well have been inspired by the story of Gideon when he said this. Numbers mean nothing to God. Whether they're numbers of men fighting in his strength or the number of enemies fighting against him, those numbers do not intimidate the Lord. He doesn't sit in heaven and go, oh, I didn't see that coming. What are we going to do? Oh, no. No. The Lord knows what he's doing. Psalm 46:1 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, And though the mountains be carried into the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, that though the world fall apart, we have God as our foundation, and his strength endures. And this courage that Jonathan showed, it inspired his armor bearer. Jonathan's armor bearer was willing to follow him into battle because he recognized his master's heart was toward the Lord, and he trusted him because of it. If you find yourself under the leadership of someone that tries to follow God, we're all human, we make mistakes, but it's someone who does his best to follow the Lord, admits his mistakes when he makes them, and tries to correct that, someone who truly follows the Lord, then you ought to give them your trust and your loyalty. Don't continue to make them suffer and struggle if they don't deserve that. If they follow the Lord, you should trust them and you should be loyal to them. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 1 says, "Let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, that the name of God and his doctrine be not blasphemed." It's being blasphemed a lot in this context nowadays, because a lot of Christians who don't treat people with the honor that they deserve, they sort of blaspheme the name of God in these ways. When we give not our employers, or anybody in authority over us, when we choose not to give them respect and honor or behave properly in these ways, the name of God is blasphemed, and the doctrine we claim to stand for, the truth that we claim to stand for, is blasphemed, just in our own behavior. It says in verse 2 of 1 Timothy 6, "And they that have believing masters, let them not despise them, because they are brethren, but rather do them service, because they are faithful and beloved, partakers of the benefit, that benefit being salvation. These things teach and exhort." Very, very important for us to understand that if we are blessed enough to have the leadership of someone who truly follows the Lord, we should give them our trust and we should give them our loyalty. So, verse 8 is where our story picks up. Let me scroll up a little bit so you guys can see this a little better. There it is. And in verse 8 it says, "Then said Jonathan, Behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. If they say thus unto us, Tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and will not go up unto them. But if they say thus, Come up unto us, then we will go up. For the Lord hath delivered them into our hands, and this shall be a sign unto us." And both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they have hid themselves. And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor-bearer, and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor-bearer, Come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. And Jonathan climbed up upon his hand and upon his feet, and his armor-bearer after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer slew after him. This would be such a cool scene to see in a really well-done TV show or something, like a movie or something. Like the two heroes climb the wall and take on an entire army with nothing but swords. That sounds like some Lord of the Rings stuff or something like that. That sounds pretty cool. In verse 14 it says, And after that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor-bearer made was about 20 men, within as it were an half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. And there was trembling in the host in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and the spoilers, they also trembled, and the earth quaked. So it was a very great tremble. So, wow. Whole lot of really cool stuff just happened there. But firstly, we see that Jonathan waits for God. He waits for the right moment to attack, and he knows it's the right moment because he waits for the Lord to tell him, now is the time. He's patient, and he waits. He doesn't lose heart. He doesn't lose courage. He doesn't jump in because he's afraid he's going to miss his moment. He waits. That's a hard thing to do. And it's the same mistake that his father made last week. Saul didn't wait. He got impatient. He said, I can't wait for Samuel anymore. I've got to do this myself. Waiting on God is one of the most important things a Christian can do. And waiting on God can be one of the most difficult things a Christian can do. Psalm 27:14 says, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, because it takes a lot of courage to wait on the Lord. Because the tendency and the fear is to say, well, I'm not being patient. I'm just doing nothing. And I should be up doing something, and I've missed an opportunity, and now I've got to get up and hurry up and make up for it. That's the fear, and that's the doubt that sort of takes over as you're endeavoring to wait on the Lord. And it takes a lot of courage to overcome those challenges in our brains. He says, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Not your hand, your heart. Because before he can strengthen your hand, he's got to strengthen your heart. And when you are finally able to move forward in a thing, it'll be because God said the timing was right. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And when he did that, he was successful. They slew 20 men before the entire garrison of Philistine soldiers began to flee and quake in fear. Most of the time, our victories upon the spiritual battlefields, they're determined by how much faith we have to battle with. 1 John 5:4 says, for whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. Your battles are determined by how strong your faith is. Just like with Jonathan and his armor bearer, which, by the way, his armor bearer is not David. I want to clarify that. I know when we start to talk about David, after a little while, we know that it talks about David being an armor bearer. David was the armor bearer of Saul, not of Jonathan. Right? So those two haven't met yet, and that's an important distinction. So when it's talking about Jonathan and his armor bearer, it's kind of cool to imagine that it was Jonathan and David before David had been anointed or before he had fought Goliath, and they're kind of going in battle together. That's a cool thought to have, but this isn't David. This is another person entirely. And on that note, verse 16, our story continues. Okay. The Bible says, and the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away. And they went on beating down one another. Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, Number now, and see who is gone from us. And when they had numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said unto Ahiah, Bring hither the ark of God. For the ark of God was at that time with the children of Israel. And it came to pass, while Saul talked unto the priests, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said unto the priest, Withdraw thy hand. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to battle. And behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a great discomfiture. Verse 21 says, Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day. And the battle passed over unto Bethaven. So, a lot to break down, but we're going to talk about it. So they began to win this battle, and they scared the Philistines half to death. So the Philistines started to run and to flee, and that's what we read before. But what we read here was from Saul's point of view. He's sitting in camp. He's unable to do anything. He's stuck in the mud. He's not even able to get up and try to fight. But all of a sudden he hears a noise of battle coming from the Philistine camp. So they prepare themselves for battle, and they go to see what's going on. So Saul realized that while he sat pouting about his problems, they went and counted and found out that Jonathan was out fighting Israel in the power of God. Everyone has a good reason to feel sorry for themselves. Did you realize that in life? Everybody has a really good reason why they feel sorry for themselves at times. And when you're tired, or you've had a bad day, or you've had a long day, our brains have a tendency to naturally draw back to those reasons that we have to feel sorry for ourselves. But if we want to avoid the pitfalls of pride that Satan has set for us, we have got to learn to get our eyes off of ourselves, or we risk losing out on all the things that God has for us. Proverbs 29:3 says, "A man's pride shall bring him low, but honor shall uphold the humble in spirit." It's an important lesson for us to learn. Put aside how bad you feel for yourself. Look to somebody else. See how you can help. Maybe just a kind word. Maybe just a word of encouragement. Sometimes just telling somebody, "Hey, I prayed for you today." That's what we should say instead of saying, "I will pray for you," because that's the Christianese. I'll pray for you. I'm going to pray for you about that, brother. Instead, we should replace that by telling people, "Hey, I prayed for you today, and I want you to know that." From one brother to another, or from one sister in Christ to another, that especially should be very encouraging. But even sometimes people who aren't necessarily Christians, people just out there in the world, when they hear me say I've prayed for you, it makes them feel good. You know, it makes them feel like somebody out there cares about them. And hopefully at some point in their life they learn that that's God that cares about them. So it's important, put down your pride. Pick up your humbleness, your humility. And that will bring you honor. That's what Saul failed to do, and God's people received help from the Israelites hiding in the mountains. So evidently, as the Philistines had come into the land, they had started to take over some of these cities and villages and so forth, and the people that lived in these places went and hid in the mountains around in that area. But when Jonathan and his armor bearer started winning this battle, and they saw the Philistines scattered around and some even fighting themselves, they came down from their hiding places and they joined Jonathan and the armor bearer in fighting the Philistines. From the Israelite prisoners that the Philistines were holding to the confusion of the Philistines themselves, this victory came from God, and that fact cannot be denied. But that help from God came from these people. It came from those hiding in the mountains and the rocks, and they came out, and they came down to the battle that was being fought, and they wanted to help win that battle. Folks, Christianity is standing right now on the backside of a rock and a hard place. And we have set up camp, and we sit here and decided there's nothing we can do about it. But what we need is a Jonathan, and what we need is an armor bearer to go jump those rocks, to climb those hills, to face that challenge, jump on the other side and start fighting this uphill battle. Because once people start to see the Lord winning, they're going to want to join in. They're going to come from their homes and their places where they've left the church house. And they're going to return to the things of God. They're going to get excited about these victories being won like they haven't done in an age. What we need are some people that are going to be willing to pick up the sword and fight that fight. That's what we're going to need. This is an amazing thing, the revelation of John's battle to Saul. Saul starts to realize what's going on. It's good to help. It's good to get help when you need it. And if you need help, don't feel any shame in that. It's okay to get help. But the greatest help any of us can receive is from God himself. Romans 8:31 says, "What shall we say to these things then? If God be for us, who can be against us?" They come down and they win this fight. And they win this fight because God helped them to win it. And we can face some difficult challenges. We can fight some uphill battles. And we can get some wins. Don't ever think that that's no longer true. We can still win in the Lord. The same God that gave Moses victory at the Red Sea, the same God that gave a victory to Gideon, the same God that helped David slay a giant, that's the same God helping you fight your challenges and battles today. I hope that you find victory in your life. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. That is our lesson for this evening. Thank you guys so much for being here and joining in. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to click that thumb. That helps us out. And we will be back on Sunday morning for our next Sunday school lesson in our series on prayers in the Bible.